Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am talking about the automotive biases that you guys sent me on Instagram. So if you are not following the channel on Instagram, it's shooting_cars. So go check that out. I've been trying to post more on there. I post behind the scenes, I post updates and things like that. And so this is sort of my ploy to get you guys to follow that page, stay up to date, as well as I'll do fun video ideas like this where I actually get your guys' inputs. So a bunch of you guys sent me some of your automotive biases, some that I agree with, some that I really don't agree with. And so you could still participate. I'm going to leave a number probably down in this corner of whatever bias this is, and so in the comments you could say like, number 1, I agree or disagree, number 2, I disagree, whatever like that. You can put your own biases and things like that, so you can still participate in the comment section down below. But without further ado, let's get into some of these biases. So the first one is from my longtime friend Nick Sander. He said, Supras are horribly overrated. Yes and no. I do think that people hype up Mark IV Supras like they're this god vehicle that can beat, you know, everything on planet Earth. And I don't think that that's true. Mark IV Supras are really cool. I haven't reviewed one yet, but I've been around them. I've spent a little bit of time with them. And yes, they're very cool. They're very fast. They're very capable of being tuned to be fast and things like that, but they're not these god vehicles. However, they are really good cars. Even the Mark V Supra, the 3-liter Mark V Supra is very, very fun. It's very, very good, and I really do enjoy it. So I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 for a hot take rating, but I don't think it's that hot of a take, but I do agree in some respects they are overrated, in some it's fine. This next one is from Caleb Collar, and they said, Teslas absolutely do not live up to the hype and feel like gutless, soulless tablets that non-car people seem to worship. Again, I sort of agree with this. I'm gonna give this a spice level of 3 because it's really gonna piss off some Tesla people. Teslas are cool cars, but they're not worshipable yet. There are still a lot of kinks, still a lot of things that need to be worked out for sure. But I think they are new and exciting, so there it is. This next one is from RJ. This is a long one. Not necessarily an unpopular opinion, but one probably not mentioned enough. Too much popularity can ruin a car in my opinion. The R35, for example, is a fantastic car, but it's worshipped like a god that it's not, and they're honestly pretty lame now that half of all famous YouTubers have owned them. Many other famous cars probably come to mind too. Personally, my favorite Supra is the A70 or Mark III, and my favorite Skylines are the R30 and R31. Cars need a healthy following that understands a car's weaknesses and embraces them as a characteristic, not admire it as a flawless entity that trumps everything else. This is why some of my favorite builds are cars no one thought to build, cars that weren't cool, but built to be cool because no one expected it. You gotta stand out, just don't put the same parts on as everyone else. When I see a Mark IV Supra show up to a car meet, I just walk away. A cool car for sure, but I've lost interest and rather have it weed out all the shallow enthusiasts from the area. So I kind of agree with RJ here. I'm honestly going to give this a 2. This isn't really a hot take. The issue with it is the fact that no one sees themselves as the annoying fanboy. No one has that self-actualization to realize that they're the person ruining a car. I do disagree with the fact that the R35 was, I think, the right amount of hype for the 2010s. I think it was a fantastic car. It was hyped. It was very hyped to drive, but I do agree that sometimes a fan club or too much following can kind of ruin a car, which has sort of started to happen with the FD. I think too many people like the FD, and I'm hoping, I don't think that'll happen with the FB, but that's why I kind of like the FB, is that like people who know Rotaries are like, oh, that's a Rotary, and then they kind of move past. There's not this annoying fan club that comes with FBs. Next up is from Caden, and they said the average minivan can store the same amount as the average midsize pickup truck. I agree with this. I think minivans are great, and that's why I love the Honda Ridgeline so much, is that you could put so much stuff into the Honda Ridgeline, more stuff than 99% of people buying trucks really need. But the issue with this argument is the fact that you don't want to get your minivan dirty. So like, I'll throw 8 tires into a pickup truck without thinking about it, but I don't want to throw 8 tires into the back of my minivan. It's going to scuff everything up, blah, blah, blah. So I'll give this another 2 on the hot takes. This isn't that hot of a take. Timothy says, unpopular automotive opinion, rotaries are nowhere near as bad or as high maintenance as other people say. They just need regular maintenance, but so does every other engine. This is a 1 on the hot take scale. This is not a hot take at all because rotaries are just as reliable as other cars if you maintain them properly. It's just different to maintain them. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sure I've made a million videos stating that. David says, my bias is that Mitsubishi has the best engines to modify to create high horsepower and high torque builds while still being reliable. But it doesn't matter because for every day you drive it, it's going to be on jack stands for 3 months. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 on a hot take because I love Mitsubishis. I've driven Lancers, I've driven a 3000 GT, I've driven an Eclipse Turbo. They're all fantastic to drive, but I've never heard of a reliable one. Especially that Diamond Star motor stuff. DSMs are not reliable at all. So I have to disagree with you there. Mitsubishis can be high horsepower builds. I wouldn't say that they're the best engines to modify. They can be high horsepower. And they're definitely not reliable. Mitsubishi is way down on my totem pole when it comes to that. David says, unpopular car opinion, I believe that a Toyota Prius will make a great daily driver. It's because I learned to drive on one. If you just need A to B, this is a 1 on the hot scale. I totally agree. The Toyota Prius is a fantastic daily. For someone that doesn't really care about cars, get a Prius. You'll save money at the pump. They're fine. They're disposable. Whatever. Our good friend Nostalgic said Underglow is cool. I'm giving this a 4 as well because Underglow is not cool at all. I used to think that Underglow on cars was really, really neat, but then I turned 12 and I no longer found it cool because I grew up. I just don't like it. I think it distracts so much from the car, and I think it's one of those modifications that only takes 2 seconds and it doesn't really add anything worthwhile. It's just like, oh, we have a thing, let's put some underglow on it, and then you put underglow on. It's not like molding fenders and doing stuff takes time and energy, and there's some more respect there, but underglow, I can't get my head around. Underglow, can't do it. Mike said, not sure why, but I've always thought that 5-speed transmissions were way cooler than 4 or 6-speed transmissions. I think 6 speeds are the lamest of the manual transmissions. 5 speeds have the perfect amount of gears, the shift pattern is aesthetically pleasing, and they are in all the cool 80s cars. I'm gonna disagree with you there. I love 5 speeds. 5 speeds are fantastic. It definitely depends car to car, too. But tell me this again after driving a Miata on the highway for 4.5 hours in 5th gear, and you're still pegged at 4,500 RPM for 4.5 hours. Literally sitting there. You'll want to French kiss a Desert Eagle. So 6 speeds are cool. I'm giving this a spice level of 3. Not super spicy, but still spicy. Next up, we have from Nick, LS swaps are way too overrated and Rotary is reliable if you know how to take care of it. I'm going to give this a 2. That's not really a hot take anymore. Being LS swaps overrated. I'll talk about it in a second. Rotaries are reliable. You should keep a Rotary in an RX-7. Personally, it's my opinion. Just because it's the only cars that came with one. Like, why would you switch out the one cool thing about RX-7s? Especially an FB RX-7, you're dealing with a 37-year-old chassis with a steering box, a solid rear axle, and probably a lot of rust. The only redeeming factor is the fact that it's Rotary, and it's the first Rotary sports car. Really. The RX-3 wasn't really a dedicated sports car. That's a different video. Anyway, LS swaps being overrated, that's the spicier portion of this hot take. I do think that they are kind of overrated in the YouTube universe. When you're trying to be different on YouTube, doing an LS swap isn't different anymore. However, saying LS swaps are overrated is like saying bread is overrated, which for you keto people, you're probably screaming at your keyboard. But anyway, LS swaps are a very, very efficient way of making a lot of horsepower, or making more horsepower than most cars come with. Most LSs run about 350 horsepower, just NA pulled from a junkyard, which is a lot more horsepower than a lot of other cars typically put out, especially even my RX-7. So they're efficient. They're the bread and butter of engine swaps. However, I do think in like the YouTube universe, it is kind of overdone. Our boy Fabby says, French manufacturers seem to focus more on the design of cars instead of focusing on the drivetrain. This is coming from a guy who lives in a country infested by French cars. Renault and Dacia Peugeot, and Citroen. Overall, I tend to stay away from them since most are unreliable, poor quality cars, and the only reason someone would buy one is the design or the low price. Just terrible cars if you ask me, and I am really sorry for anyone who owns a French car. I hope you don't get too many people mad. I haven't really driven a French car before, so I can't really speak on this. You know what? Just for messing with the French, I'll give it a 3 on the hot take scale. Just going after the French because they could be real brutal. I can't really speak on this too much. Hopefully when I go to Europe at some point, I can figure that out. Brandon says, unpopular opinion, this is a long one. People who have blind spot monitoring systems on their vehicle, but somehow manage to cause an accident by coming into an occupied lane, should get extra large fines, suspension of driver's license, or even prison time, depending on the severity of the accident. This is because they clearly ignore the system that alerts them that something is in their blind spot, which basically means that they hit the other driver on purpose since the system alerted them, but they decided to merge over anyway. There's a little light that comes up on the mirrors, a display pops up on the center display behind your steering wheel, and it beeps at you when you're about to hit something or someone. There is zero excuse for somebody with this system in their vehicle to ignore it and still cause an accident despite the warnings from their vehicle. This is a hot take. I'm gonna give this, let's give this a 4, just because jail time for going into someone's lane, I guess causing an accident, severity of the accident, yeah. I agree with this partially. I do agree that there should be something in place that if you're not paying attention consistently to blind spot monitoring, something should happen. However, there are still ways to not pay attention, especially like those lights. I now own a car with blind spot monitors. The light comes on and off so many times on my mirror that I almost kind of tune it out. That's just the way the human body works. When you see something every single day, multiple times a day, it comes normal to you and it doesn't really alert you as much anymore. I do think maybe raised fines on vehicles that maybe do verge into other people's lanes and cause accidents and stuff that do have those systems or something of the sort. But I don't know about jail time. And I definitely think there are ways that people can still tune those out. If your music is up any percent, you're not going to hear those things. So I do get maybe raising fines a little bit, but not jail time for not looking at a light on your mirror. Next up, we have from Chrissy. And they said, I think the term crossover SUV has become meaningless to what it used to mean. I feel that a crossover SUV should be a normal car that is taken up a notch, given four-wheel drive, big tires, and so on. Cars like the original Subaru Outback, Volkswagen Golf Cross Country, and Suzuki X90 are all what I think of as crossovers, not the modern tiny high-riding hatchbacks. Not that spicy. I'm gonna give this a 2, just because crossovers are so hot right now. You might piss a couple people off saying this. Crossover is an old, pretty much dead term. I remember physically when crossovers started to become a thing back in the early 2000s when we got a Chrysler Pacifica. It was like a crossover. It was one of like the first crossovers. I think there are so many SUVs now that we're done crossing over. We already crossed over the bridge. I do think that they need a new name or just new industry term. So I'll agree with you there. I'll agree with you there for sure. Now getting into the Instagram comments, all those people DM'd me, but these are the people that don't listen and just commented instead of DMing like I asked. Atlas says, Volkswagen gauge clusters are Christmas trees on 4 wheels. I'll give this a 2 for pissing off the Volkswagen community, but it's kind of true in my finding, especially higher mileage ones. Newer ones are fine. Midlife Crisis Racing says rotaries are unreliable. This is getting a 5. This is a 5 hot take. And I'm sure they just commented this to push my buttons. And now going to their page, it's all an SA and RX-8. A little bit of RX-3 content too. So obviously just meant to push my buttons. I will say this about rotor reliability. I have had 3 RX-7s. 3 RX-7s and 1 13B. In all 3 of those chassis, my engine has outlived 3 cars. Just saying. Adam says the 2JZ is overrated. Yes, it's fantastic, but Toyota has put out so many other cool engines in the past and get no love. For example, the 3S GTE. I'll say this is a 3 because I do love the 2JZ, and I do think the 2JZ is really good. I think the internet has kind of blown it up as this holier than thou motor, which is not true. But I don't know of many other Toyota engines that can handle as much power and be as modifiable and have as much aftermarket support as the 2JZ has. Toyota has other really great motors like the 3S GTE that you mentioned. I think the 2J is still king in terms of modifications just because so many companies make parts for it. Atomic Axolot says sometimes a turbo or a supercharger just aren't the way to go. Also, I love stance cars, and the BRZ platform is overrated. Okay, so there's 3 of them in there. So first of all, sometimes a turbo or supercharger aren't the way to go. I totally agree. I think I'm going to go NA with my car and just do a big port. I do agree. It definitely changes the dynamics of a car a lot, and sometimes you don't want that. Part 2, you love stance cars. Let me know when you graduate junior high, and we can actually talk about real cars after that. And third of all, the BRZ platform is overrated. Also, let me know when you want to grow up, because the BRZ platform is really good. It's a really solid platform. I love it. The BRZ 86 is one of the last modern low power, rear wheel drive, manual, fun cars you can buy, and I would own one in a heartbeat if I had enough room. He then went to add, played out, I should say, nobody cares about your Rocket Bunny or Pandem kit, BRZ. Yeah, I agree with that. BRZ should not be stance cars. Stance cars should be, well, stance cars shouldn't exist. But yeah, putting a Pandem kit on your BRZ, get that out of here. The following, Judson says stance sucks. I agree. Okay, here's my true thing on stance, and I'll give this a 4 out of 10 for the spiciness, because this is going to make a lot of people mad. Stance cars are, do whatever you want with your car. I really don't care what you do with your car. Do whatever you want with your car. However, don't show me your stance car and then say it's just as fast, it's just as good handling, it drives really nice. No, it doesn't. People who are into stance cars and lowering their cars all the way to the ground are kings and queens of compromising. They say the car rides fine. It does not ride fine. It does not ride normal. Any lowered car will have a rougher ride than a factory suspension car. Even just lowering springs, like on my Mazda 3, lowering springs, 1.5-inch drop, I guarantee you will ride worse than just the factory suspension. It's just the way it goes. There it is. Last but not least, this is from Expired Water. I reviewed his Lincoln Mark 8 as well as his Fiat 124 Abarth. Digital screen gauges are lame and soulless compared to physical gauges and will look dated and slow in 10 years. I disagree. This is getting a 3 out of 5 for the spicy scale. I really like digital gauges, as long as they're super customizable or super interesting or super unique. Digital gauges that look like regular gauges and you can't change them, that's stupid. I don't like that. They could look dated in 10 years. They might not. I really don't see digital screens stopping. And I think a big thing that might come out, I have no knowledge of this at all, but I think like texture packs for gauge clusters might be a thing, where you have a car that's 10 years old, you bop a thing in, boom, you have a different gauge cluster. You have an updated gauge cluster. You have a modern gauge cluster. I mean, it's just a screen. You update your software on your phone all the time, so why couldn't they change that? I don't know. That would be cool. I really like digital gauges, but from your perspective, I totally understand why you. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a fun, different idea. If you guys want to submit your own hot takes, leave it in the comments section down below. Or if you want to give your own opinions on the hot takes, don't forget, use those numbers and in the comment section say, hey, in reply to number 4, I disagree or whatever like that. So please leave in the comment section down below and follow my Instagram, shooting_cars. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.